Do you guys ever have one of those coworkers who just derails all of your prep for everything? You know, like maybe you just show up like 40 minutes early to a meeting because you have some work to do. And then he shows up 38 minutes early and says, hey, I need you to help me with this thing that's going to take about 39 and a half minutes.
I take it that's me today. Hey,
that is you. I'm still doing headlines and we're live.
That's because Tuz waits to the last minute to do the work he's supposed to do, right, folks? I show up and I actually have an issue that he didn't need to help me for anything. All he had to do is say, yes, no, I can hear you, I can't hear you. Somehow that derailed his entire day, and now he's going to be scrambling writing headlines. Oh, boy. You can imagine what Mashup 119 is going to be, you know, a tire fire today. We got to say hi to Jason Levine's going to be joining us very shortly.
Yep.
And he's got us streaming on his X and Facebook, I believe. So hello to people who are like, who the heck are these two yahoos? Well,
neither of us are Jason.
That is correct. Soon to have Jason sitting in here. Mashup 119. So I was actually saying to the in-laws today, too, I'm like, we've been going for over 2 years on this show. That's a wild thought. Every Friday now, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, we break down the headlines across Canada and elsewhere, usually through newspapers. I want to bring up a happy
take out 1 week off for Christmas and that's it.
But we don't. We actually do the Festivus.
Okay, so, yeah, but that doesn't. Okay, whatever. We get drunk and live stream.
Fair. Happy Airborne Friday to Jamie Sinclair. We do have the Mashup collection for anyone who cares to support what we do. There you go. I'll toss it in the links. We had a couple of different guys on last week, Marty Up North and Drew Weatherhead, and you can see there's a couple different features for them, throwbacks to what they did.
And if you're new to the show and you're wondering why there's a chicken everywhere, ask somebody who knows.
It's not a chicken. It's a rooster. It's a rooster.
I know it's a rooster.
All right.
Yes, Sean. I'm the one who said it. Okay.
Okay.
What else?
Well, you asked Grok. Grok? Yeah. I don't know. Twitter, whatever. X. What the mashup is. I thought this was clever. Well, actually, it pretty much encapsulates everything we are. What is the mashup, formerly known as the Tuesday mashup? Because for the longest time we were Tuesdays. The mashup, formerly known as the Tuesday mashup, is a weekly show hosted by Sean Newman and 222 minutes that covers the week's best stories in Canada and around the world. It is described as what legacy news would be if it didn't suck. I enjoyed that part.
That was Twitter's AI. I just asked it, what is this thing? And it found it and it said that. So I was extremely happy to hear that. That was nice.
It got it on the nose, right? Or on the chin, like bang, bang.
Well, I like to think so.
You mentioned Silver Gold Bull. What the heck are you talking about, Silver Gold Bull?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you like talking about him. And I finally reached out to him and got him to send me a few tons of silver. So, yeah. And like literally, I went from having never talked to them before to having a shipment on its way in about 25 minutes. And to my dismay, I didn't get an extra thing. There's a Sean Newman discount that you can get if you name drop, but being twos doesn't get you any further than that.
That does. They're like, who? It's kind of like Jason Levine when he showed up. We'll bring him in here shortly. He's like, yeah, who is this guy? I'm like,
are you the tech guy that helps Sean out? And I'm like,
that's great. Okay. We always start the show out with the update on the Coots 2, 908 days. That's Christopher Carbert, Anthony Olenek. Today we're bringing in Jason Levine, so we'll bring him in right now. Jason, thanks for hopping on with us.
Thank you very much for having us. And sorry about that, too. No, you're absolutely correct. You're the backstage guy, and I'm learning quickly how valuable you are to the show.
I tell you what, I think it's great. There's just some things you cannot script on this show, and you've just provided us one of them.
There's literally nothing scripted on this show.
Hey, Grok knew before I knew, so I feel a little bit bad about that.
Jason, we've been talking a lot about the Coots 4. We've been paying attention. We like to, remind people how many days, and usually bring up between you and Mocha, and I'm sure I'm leaving out a few different reporters, basically some things that stick out during the week. And of course, over July, they were on trial, and we thought, what better way than just bring you on, and you could give us kind of your thoughts on the month of July, anything that stuck out. We'll start there and have at her.
Absolutely. And thank you very much, Sean, for your coverage as well. It's been very helpful to get that message across Alberta and Canada. And I really appreciate catching up on your stuff when I can. And really nice to meet Twos. So I definitely going to pay more attention, at least to Friday, 10 a.m., to see what's going on with these mashups. But you're not wrong. And the trial actually started June. So we actually had all of June and July. And I think the big takeaway, other than the verdict itself for July, is how the Crown changed their theory last minute. So they clearly didn't have the evidence that was necessary in their mind to convince this jury that these gentlemen are guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, because they did everything they could at the end in their closing statement to try and shift the focus and try and make some new allegations, which not only did the defense take issue with, but so did the justice. So that led to some jury charges to instruct the jury to basically ignore the Crown's closing and to remind them that they're not here to speculate and put theories together and fill in the gaps, which is exactly what the Crown asked them to do in the closing. It is to follow the evidence and make sure that they are confident when they make their verdict that it is beyond reasonable doubt. They believe the guilt is there. And thankfully, the jury did provide that service to these two men by finding them not guilty on conspiracy to commit murder, because there was never a plan, there was never a membership, and there was never a conspiracy from day one on that particular charge. So thank goodness that jury did see through the shenanigans put on by the Crown and saw the truth. There was no conspiracy to harm anybody, let alone police officers. And these gentlemen were really just protesters that maybe had a few extra accessories that they shouldn't have had in that area, but it certainly wasn't dangerous. And then the last takeaway on this one is their guilty verdict on weapons for a dangerous purpose. That one still has everybody scratching their head. I had Catherine Biak and Marilyn Burns on my show yesterday morning to talk to them exactly about that issue. And between the two of them, we still don't know where the jury came up with a dangerous purpose. And we'll be trying to analyze that one for weeks to come, especially as sentencing is coming up to address that particular portion of the jury's verdict.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if everybody... I assume lots of people have tuned into Sean's roundtable on it, where they basically said the exact same thing you did. We were like, where? Why? It didn't really make a lot of sense.
Well, and the thing I think I caught actually from your show as well, Jason, was, if you don't have conspiracy to commit murder, how can you have the rest of the charges, right? Because it was like everything was built on that one, and then all of a sudden you think if they're not guilty of that, they get to walk away. And instead they're found guilty of possession of weapons for dangerous purposes.
Which, I mean, really, how dangerous of a purpose is it to have a rusted to crap homemade thing that you're trying to use to free up drill bits that you've forgotten about, that your father, who's been dead almost a decade, made a very long time ago? How dangerous of a purpose can that possibly be?
You bring up an excellent point, because you're referring to the extra charge that Tony Olenek has, which is possession of explosives. And not only did the Crown fail at providing evidence that Tony had any dangerous purpose for that, which means maybe talked about bringing it to Coots, which never happened, or something along those lines. They also failed to provide evidence that Tony himself not only had knowledge that it was there, but that he knew that his father left him as part of the estate, anything along those lines. The information we received from Tony directly as part of his interview, which was played to the jury, and as part of the information that came out through his lawyer, Marilyn Burns, was that Tony took care of his father's estate in 2017 in his passing, and did not open up every single box and did not look into everything that he stored into his storage area of his property. So there's an argument that needs to be made here at some point, whether it's his sentencing or an an appeal that Tony actually had no knowledge or control, which is required in order to be found guilty on that charge. So that's not going to be over. There's going to be more around that particular charge because the Crown did not provide any evidence that Tony was aware of it, other than possessing it. But the judge was very clear with his charge that you need to have knowledge and control. So knowledge, which is part of the mens rea portion of a criminal requirement, was not proven. So other than being a scary looking thing, I'm not sure even how the jury got there on that charge as well. So I'm hoping there's going to be an appeal, and we'll hear some more arguments soon about that one.
I feel like nobody on the jury ever grew up in a small town or on a farm. Like, I feel like everybody there were city people because, the having a 22, the using gophers as language for cops. And then even this, because I feel like we talked about this, something similar. Bear with me a sec. A few months ago, where this guy in Quebec found a hand grenade when he was cleaning out his dad's stuff, and he turned it into the cops. And we were talking about how if we had found a hand grenade, we'd call up a bunch of buddies and say, meet me at the gravel pit. We're going to do something awesome. Right. And correct. I feel like if my dad passed and I was cleaning up a bunch of his stuff and I found some bombs, it would be the exact same thing. And so there'd be no way that I would be in possession of something like this knowingly, because if I knew about it, I would have totally seen how big they went boom.
No, and that's a fair argument. But I think the burden is going to lie on Tony at this stage, and possibly his mother, to explain how that estate worked and how that happened. Because again, I don't think you're wrong. Tony has a gravel pit in his backyard. He mines gravel out of his backyard. And he absolutely, I'm sure he would have had some fun with that if that was his intended purpose. But it didn't make its way down to Coots, so we can absolutely make sure people understand that at no point there was no message, no intercept, no conversation, and this includes from the undercover operatives, that Tony in any way, shape, or form thought that something that goes boom would be a good idea in Coots. That never came out in any way, shape, or form. And it wasn't even discovered by the RCMP until February 19th, so several days after his arrest, when they did a search of his property. And it required them to take a ladder to go up into the storage area to actually find this stuff. So this was not readily available. And there's evidence that Tony had no knowledge of it. So that particular one, I think you're going to see an appeal on, and there's going to be good arguments that that particular verdict should be overturned.
I want to show a clip real quick, if I may. Oh, wait, it's our show.
Oh, this gives me the chills still, this particular interview.
Oh, never mind. Anyway,
CSIS is stopping your attempt there, I'm pretty
yeah,
sure.
basically, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's a funny little load screen where I'm seeing you guys just fine and there's no lagging, but that particular video doesn't seem to want to work.
Funny.
Tinfoil hat.
No, and I want to highlight that particular one. So that's February 14th, 2024, when the RCMP came out and laid out the narrative. They laid it out way before they had evidence. There was a lot of things that were factually incorrect in there. And when they talk about having evidence, well, the jury disagrees. And not just the jury. The Crown also let Chris Lysick and Jerry Morin plead to deals that removed conspiracy to commit murder off the table. So in February 6th, when that deal was struck with two of the four men, the Crown made an admission, an agreed statement of facts, that no, these two gentlemen had nothing to do with the conspiracy to commit murder. And then the jury, August 2nd, filled in the rest of the gaps for all of us when they returned a not guilty for the remaining two men, Chris Carber and Tony Olenek, on the same charge.
For moving forward, Jason, what's the next big things that people should be paying attention to?
Sentencing. So August 12th was originally scheduled for the sentencing, but unfortunately, David Lebrenz is not available August 12th, so we're waiting for the date. Could come at any time when we get a date. The commitment that we have from Lebrenz is an August date. So sometime before the end of the month, the sentencing should happen. And here's where we're going to get a really good idea of where the justice's mind is on these charges, is how much of a sentence he thinks that they need to do, and whether or not time served has already happened. We are expecting, based on case law and some initial looks at the sentencing recommendations coming out of the defense, that Chris Carber is well and truly beyond any time that he could be expecting for mischief and for weapons for a dangerous purpose. And then Tony Olenek should also be in the same position, except there's a lot of question around this explosive conviction and exactly what can it come. That particular charge could be a life sentence if the justice believes he was intending to harm somebody with it, deadly purpose or bodily harm, or even up to 14 years if it was for destruction of property. So I'm very curious on where the justice is going to go with the sentencing. And I would highly encourage, if you can be in the Lethbridge area sometime later this month, when that date comes out, that you are there, because this is going to be either freedom for both men, one man, or neither man. So this is something to pay attention to.
Fair enough. And you're going to be, I'm assuming you're going to be posting whenever that gets finalized.
I'll be there. There's a particular seat in the courtroom that has my butt imprinted on it now, because I was there for every day. So I expect to be sitting there again as this sentencing is discussed.
Yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of people starting to, pay attention to when the dates are coming out and different things. I'm curious what that day looks like when it comes around and how many people show up to that. It is wild to me to sit here and discuss the explosive thing and go, it could have a lifetime. I think that's highly unlikely, but still to even be in that discussion, I'm like, that is brutal. Okay, before we move on from the Coots, and I was saying this before we started, like the 12 minutes we give the Coots update is certainly almost a shame, right? That's why I would push people to go listen to some of Jason's work on this. Of course, this past week we just did a roundtable on my side as well, and certainly there's more there, so people can go search it out, but I feel bad only giving that amount of time, and yet on this show, we wanted to make sure that we brought in a little bit more than just a quick update, and appreciate Jason joining us. Is there anything else, Jason, before we move on from this, that you want people to know before we head on to some of the other topics of today's show?
Sure. If you want to crash course on what was going on behind the scenes, I've released, and I have my last one today, a 3-part series about all the information that was publicly inaccessible under the publication bans. So now that the publication ban's been released around the jury and protecting the jury on information, all that information is coming out. So I have 6 notebooks full of information that I took, and I've already done 2 episodes. They're about 2 hours each, and there will be another one today at 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern, where I'll provide the last portion of the trial and all the publication ban items there.
And on X, correct? I'm sure other places as well?
Yeah, X, Rumble, my website, thelevineshow.com, Facebook. You'll find us everywhere except for YouTube. YouTube seems to have an issue with my topics, and they don't keep me around.
You don't say. Yeah, they don't like to keep a whole bunch of us around.
No, fair enough.
All right.
Okay, well we're gonna keep Jason in for a couple extra headlines. Danielle Smith Anoy's twos of the week. Are we talking leadership review here?
Yeah.
Twos? Where would you like to begin?
The leadership, the immigration. I mean, it's the thing about it is we've had this headline up, I don't know, a half dozen times in the past 2 months. So we turn it into a weekly thing. So there's no wrong place to start. Just take it and run with it.
Well, one of the things that's come to light again, it was a January interview I did with Danielle Smith where she brought up the 10 million population, and she looked to immigration to do that, whether it was from Canada or abroad, and that would give us a bigger seat at the table, and that's what she thought would get Alberta across the line to have that, right? And it's come back to light. I did an interview with Kirk Lubimoff, who Tooz had suggested a while back. I'll give you the tip of the cap for that, Tooz. And he we're talking, and I brought it up, and so I sent him the clip, and that's kind of resurfaced all over Twitter now of her talking about this. And that's been, a series of, I don't know, is it missteps by the premier? Is it just a lack of initiative on certain things that she ran on? Regardless, I think very highly of a guy named Marty Up North who, co-hosted this show. He's voiced concern. You have the leadership review coming later this year where, Jason, your thoughts?
My thoughts are Southern Alberta is very upset with Danielle Smith right now. So when you're in Southern Alberta, for as long as I was with the Lethbridge coverage, you meet a lot of the people out there. So Marco van Hugenbos would be someone who's very active, Alex van Herk. And surprisingly, these are also two men who were found guilty of their activities with the Coutts leadership. So their trial ended in April, and their verdict came down guilty by jury. And part of their frustration is the lack of communication during the Coutts blockade with the provincial government, at the time Jason Kenney. And Marco van Hugenbos and Alex van Herk were very active in the review for Jason Kenney. And so Southern Alberta showed up and did their vote for the review. And as we know, history has shown that Jason stepped down and Danielle stepped up. Now, the same group of people, which would be considered their Southern Alberta base, are just as upset when it comes to ideology in the schools, the reaction to the justice system, the inactivity around the Coutts situation. And no, people were not expecting Danielle to go into the courtroom and free the men with her bare hands or anything like that. But they certainly wanted her to bring awareness and talk about it. So there was definitely an opportunity. I think the Southern Alberta was expecting her to have conversations, maybe meet with the parents or the mother of some of the men and have conversations. But that was so lacking, and it took Tucker Carlson to come to Calgary to ask her the question before we got a public response from her around the Coutts men. And her response there left a lot of us scratching our heads and wanting more. It
I was there. It was an absolute non-answer.
Her wings being clipped caused more questions than answers, because we'd like to know, well, who clipped them? Why are they clipped? And then why are you clipped? Like, there's a lot of questions around there. So God willing, we're able to have a conversation with her now that the verdict is out, and she doesn't feel the pressure to intervene, because certainly she can't do that. But she can provide a lot of awareness so that a lot of Albertans can learn this story and look into it. And I'd like to see that still happen.
Tubes?
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. I mean, the immigration, the 10 million people, and her argument that we need to have a giant population base to have a decent seat at the table, to actually be able to have a say in what goes on in Canada. Absolutely fucked. Here's the thing is, we are the economic engine. We pay the fucking mortgage on this place. I don't give a shit how our population relates, especially when we've got 1/4 of the representation per person of Prince Edward Island. We've got so much more than any one of the maritime places, including population and economy, and yet we've got a smaller say than any one of them. We get taken for granted by the Conservative Party, and the Liberal Party doesn't even bother trying to win us over, and the NDP are not a serious party. And that leaves us totally out in the wind on every part of Confederation.
All right.
Sorry. Yeah, this is... Welcome to the show, Jason.
Yeah, I didn't know if I was to respond. I heard the buzzer. I thought I was playing Operation, and I came too close to that wishbone.
No. So I should, with the new audience watching us, I should give the breakdown. There's every topic we do, we're supposed to stick to 2 minutes. And usually once a week, we bring on a guest to talk a little more in depth about a certain something that week is big news, noteworthy, henceforth having you on. And so I buzz twos every time. I'm like, all right, it's time to move on to the next headline. Because believe it or not, we got 30-some headlines, and they don't get any better. They just keep going into this spiral motion of what the world currently is. So twos, the next one, please.
Okay, first off, hi, Crystal. I appreciate that. Second one.
The state of transit in Canada. I think twos, you're going to pull up the video, correct?
Yeah, you betcha. So check this out. This is on one of the freeways around Toronto. Funny, this video is working, but the other one didn't.
Yeah, man seen being dragged across the highway in the
blurry,
GTA.
But yeah, there's just this guy. He's going off towards Trafalgar Road.
Trafalgar Road. So that's Oakville. So this is going to be the QEW heading into Toronto.
Yeah, and he's just dragging behind the vehicle. Here's the thing about Canada is our transit system, our public transit is so incredibly fucked and unsafe and sketchy that this is a safer alternative.
Well, I certainly think that's a stretch, but we certainly seen video out of India and other countries where they're on the outside of trains and hopping a ride there. I'm not sure that this is exactly what's going on here, but I think what this is highlighting is how dangerous that particular region is getting, and how people are worried because you're seeing things you've never seen before, like people being dragged beside cars well down the road. That hopefully that person is okay. But this is a trend that we're seeing, and Donald Best, who's on my show frequently, ex-police officer from the Toronto region, he's been highlighting this for years, the type of issue and the decline is happening in the Greater Toronto area. You're going to see more stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary incident, and yet this is the one time where somebody didn't poop themselves around Toronto.
We're not sure how that ended. I'm sure there might have been some loaded pants there, but whether they buried it onto the beach in Toronto or not, I don't know.
Jason's starting to get the theme of the show with cracking jokes like that.
We'll get to that a little bit later.
That's not a joke. I'm pretty sure there's evidence that got buried on a beach somewhere.
Jordan Peterson Madison.
So Jordan Peterson agrees to social media coaching after Supreme Court declines free speech case. And so what's happening right now is, for anybody not familiar with it, which is probably a very small list, so I'll be brief, the College of Physicians, or College of Psychologists, rather, in Canada, said that Jordan Peterson had to take social media training because he said that a large woman was not attractive.
That's where it started. Yeah.
So I may have an unpopular opinion, but I think he needs it because his punctuation and his haikus are kind of annoying.
Yes, okay, so I can appreciate that side of it. Yeah, I can absolutely appreciate that.
But the bigger issue here is who's next? Who's next? Is it going to be Sean? Is it going to be myself? Is it going to be Twos? Who's next? Who's going to get some social media training next?
Twos could probably use some social media training. I think the audience would agree.
Yeah.
Maybe, but exactly what does this look like? Like, I am so concerned that this is a thing, and of course they go after some of the bigger names because if they can get him, they can get everybody. So this is a way of everybody falling into line.
Well, and you tack on what's happening here in Canada with what's going on in the UK and elsewhere, I might add, with now, and I believe we'll eventually get to that, but, the fact that, they're going to start jailing people for social media posting or retweeting, what is going to be hatred, and I forget the other terms that they use. You're like, we're entering into a really dangerous, dark period, and that's saying something because we've been living it now for 4+ years, maybe longer, depending on who you talk to. And so we're getting into these very, very strange times. And I don't know if any of us thought Jordan Peterson was going to win this. Did anyone go, "Oh, he's going to win this"? I think it would have been a shock if he went the other way. It's just it continues on, and thankfully, I think you got a guy like Jordan Peterson who continues to rally against it instead of just going away. Right?
Yeah,
I think it's making more noise, and it's being more noticeable by him talking out against it than if he just disappeared into Florida and never talked about it again.
Yeah, it's like this Streisand effect, right? Like, nobody really knew about it until it was talked about. Mm-hmm. So the Peterson effect is going to be making sure that you are continuing to have your thoughts, vocalize it, and then get you some retraining from it. I'm very concerned about this one. Jordan was very correct many, many years ago when he said compelled speech is a slippery slope. Let's be careful. And now we have silencing. So he was right about that.
I remember thinking at the time that he's being a tad hyperbolic, maybe. Like, yeah, I feel like why is this guy making such a big deal out of it? And why is anybody not saying, hey, maybe you just need to switch to decaf for a little while? And then, he was super fucking right about it.
I'm pretty sure you're just more upset with his making the bed statement. You did not want to fall in line. I'm pretty sure that was the issue there.
Yes. Well, it's the lobster in me coming out.
Yeah, pretty sure if we check your room right now, your bed's not made. That's my guess.
Actually, it's not.
We normally we keep Jason in with us we used to do this when we only had 15 headlines. With 30-some headlines, we're going to thank Jason for hopping in. It's
thank you very much.
Appreciate your continued focus on the Coots trial and being there and updating, because one of the things is I wish there was 50 of them, 50 of you or 50 other people there. And certainly I talk a lot about Mocha Bazurgan as one of the guys I initially had on who talked about it. You mentioned yourself, or we mentioned yourself, when I brought up your tweets, because I was saying this on the roundtable this week, is when it comes to the Coots, anything, the only place I seem to be able to get anything is from X, which is really sad state of media in Canada. So we'll be watching and paying attention here with yourself, among others, as new details come out about the trial or the sentencing, I guess, and when that's going to be. And we'll make sure we try and support getting the news out, because it seems to be like this little tiny... almost black hole, when it comes around.
If it wasn't for a small handful of people, no one would have any idea about any of this.
Correct. So we appreciate you hopping on with us, Jason, and giving us an update. And, we'll see what the next month brings. But certainly here in August, we should see sentencing, is what everybody's hoping. And hopefully that is the case. Thanks again for joining us. Where can people find you before we let you out of here?
TheLivingShow.com will be your best bet. You can find all my links from there. You can also watch the show from there for free. And I just want to kind of echo what you just said there. In normal times, this would have been our O.J. Simpson trial. Everybody would have been watching. They would want to see to their pants. There would have been no room in that courtroom because everybody would have been watching. So that's evidence that we're not in normal times anymore. We're in a different time, that's for sure.
Thanks again, Jason.
Thank you very much for your time. You guys are a lot of fun. I'll be enjoying your show next Friday as well. Take care.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
He says that until we kick him out, and then I let Twos have rule the roost, and we'll see what Jason says after this thing's all done. The Special Olympics. Okay, here we go. Where do you want to start? You want to start with the swimming? Should we start with the swimming?
Sure, let's start with the swimming.
Okay,
so we covered this how many weeks ago, and them spending €1 billion
1.5
trying
billion
to clean up this river.
Correct.
It went up. It was initially when we reported it, they'd only spent
swimming
$1 billion.
in the Seine River has been prohibited since 1923 because the water has been toxic. Then they had the triathlon, right? They didn't allow them to swim in it for the trial, the practice day. They allowed them to do it on actual race day. And then now 2 people have become sick. It's saying another 3 days after, but they're not saying it's the water to blame. Didn't happen. It wasn't the water.
Is it? Well, it's not the water that got them sick. It's all the shit and piss in the water that got them sick.
and there's that, and then there's the Toronto Star. I got to enter in the Toronto Star because I found this article really interesting. He was talking about the CBC and Pierre Poilievre and his fascination with eliminating the CBC. Yes, there you have that. If Pierre Poilievre gets his way, the next Olympics might not be so much fun to watch. And he said to eliminate the CBC would turn the Olympics into yet another product that must be paid to be witnessed for all their flaws.
As opposed to taxes?
I know. I'm just like, he goes, CBC will get $1.38 billion this year. The total national expenses will be $538 billion. This guy literally
1.38.
Yeah,
he's talking about. He's like, well, we've got a giant fucking deficit, so what's a little bit more? That's his argument. And to back it up, he said, well, it turned out that about a third of Canadians tuned into CBC to watch the opening ceremonies. So this hour-long program that
is
airs
worth $538
once every
billion.
4 years is worth $1.38 billion per year. So you're looking at a little over $5 billion for an hour worth of programming, and this is the best argument you can make for keeping the CBC around? Well done, you absolute dipshit.
People kind hunt. RCMP are currently on scene of a serious police incident and are issuing a shelter-in-place. Containment has been set up in the area. Residents with these township roads are asked to stay inside and do not answer your doors for anyone. RCMP are still on the scene and are advising that they are searching for 2 armed and dangerous suspects. The shelter-in-place is still in effect for the area for public and police safety. Please avoid the area. What was pointed out as they didn't give any information to us. Two
people. Which everybody online went to the immediate correct conclusion, which was that they weren't white. Because guaranteed, whenever there's a big shooting somewhere and they say an individual, it's somebody who isn't white. because they always jump on, if it's somebody who's white, they'll be like, watch out for the white guy. And if they're like, well, we can't describe this person. We don't know what they look like. They know what they look like. They just don't want to say what they look like because whoever's writing it is scared of losing their job for being called a racist.
You point to that. Huh? It's like they didn't even point what vehicle they were in. What, like all the descriptors that would help people go, oh, I'm looking. They stole a county vehicle. Oh, that'd be easy to point out.
So here's the time frame on this is that dude pulls over to help out some people with a flat tire. They shoot him in the arm. Somebody else pulls over. They shoot him fucking dead. And yeah, he's a ginger, so you got a bit of an argument for why it happened. But at the same time, you've now got two people who have shot two different in one big incident, but two separate times. They have been opening fire on people. They stole a vehicle, and they are running around the Drumheller area. And you are so scared of being called racist that you won't tell the public what to watch out for? Did we learn absolutely nothing from Nova Scotia?
The answer is no.
No, we didn't. Well, we did, but they fucking didn't. Let's do another 200-page synopsis that reads like a fucking comedy of errors on this one. Crystal Denome, whose show is this? Who should I be following? 222 minutes, and that fucking guy is Sean.
And I'm the Sean Newman Podcast. So you can find us on X.
Yes.
It is interesting to be on someone else's channel and be like,
hello,
Crystal.
There's going to be people tuning in halfway through, and they're like, what
is this? Where's Jason? What happened?
This is a live stream?
Yes. We do a mashup every Friday, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on the headlines of Canada and elsewhere. The next one, Calgary Water episode. You get the point. Way too much. Calgary will return to the strictest level of outdoor water restrictions later this month as the crews prepare to repair a number of weak spots found along the feeder main line that ruptured in early June. In an update on Wednesday afternoon, Mayor Jody Gondak said the city will return to Stage 4 outdoor water restrictions on August 26th, and they will remain in place until the major work on the Bears Paw South feeder main is done. She said the results from a pipe diver device showed 16 more points of weakness along the pipe that would need addressed before the end of September. So there you go. You can expect August 28th until an estimated completion time, which if we've learned anything from government, anytime they give you an estimated completion
at
time,
a zero,
buckle up. They're saying September 23rd. I say after snowfall. Twos.
Have you ever, I don't know, been fixing something on your car or, you're building something or whatever else, and you get all the way done, and then you realize that you got a screw left over or something like that. You got to take it all the way apart again and fix one little thing, and then you got to go through the whole process of closing it up again? Crazy pitch. The next time the city of Calgary has to dig a giant fucking hole kilometers long and drain that entire feeder main that's 72 inches across, coming in from Bears Paw, maybe that would probably be the opportune time to have somebody go in there with a fucking flashlight and see if there's any latent dripping going on. That's what you should have done in the first place. You literally had the whole fucking thing open for a month, 2 months. That's when you check and make sure that there's anything else you got to do while you're there. Yeah, just poke around, give it a little tap, see if there's anything else to do before you close the entire, fill in all the dirt, build the road on top of it again, fill it full of water, purge the air, and then be like, well, you know what? Now's the perfect time to see if there's anything weird going on. This is what Calgary spends their tax dollars on. I hope you guys are happy. And Stephanie says, Ginger Lives Matter. I could not agree less.
Chow down. I mean, do I need to show anything more than this? I don't know.
She's basically become the Justin Trudeau of Ontario.
Although I did enjoy this tweet as well. Right? It says, lady...
let's actually describe for anybody listening along. So Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow is dressed up in absolutely garish Caribbean festival attire with all kinds of feathers coming out the back, and she's got this bedazzled swimsuit kind of thing. Sure. And an orange belt, like she's also partially Rogue from the X-Men 90s cartoon.
Okay.
But that's what she's doing, and there's videos of her going around dancing at this carnival festival, and then literally the next day she's wearing a hijab to go to some Middle Eastern event. And so go back to your tweet that you wanted to read.
And then Kat Canada said, I wonder what dignified country leaders think of Canada when they see a mayor of the largest Canadian city, Olivia Chow of Toronto, dressed like this. And then Mike Bouvet says, lady, our last mayor resigned because he was having an affair with a subordinate 40 years younger, and the guy before him literally smoked crack. Nobody gives a fuck. That pretty much sums it up.
Well, I mean, economics don't trickle down, but culture does. And we have a prime minister who has treated every day like it's Halloween for a fucking decade, and then we're surprised when the mayor of one of the biggest cities in this country looks like an absolute goof dressing up in some sort of like an our culture is not your costume moment, but we don't give a fuck because we're the progressives. That's basically where we're at.
UK, more like you gay. This is the big news coming out of the UK. I mean, minus all the protests, but it says, think before you post. Content that incites violence or hatred isn't just harmful, it can be illegal. The CPS takes online violence seriously and will prosecute when the legal test is met. Remind those close to you to share responsibility or face the consequences. Oh, yeah, there you go. And the CTV News chimed in saying, news says it's all about Elon Musk. He needs to act responsibly, as if Elon Musk is the one inciting all the problems in the UK.
Yeah, I don't really see Elon Musk in a lot of the rape gangs in the UK. I mean, maybe the footage is out there and I just haven't seen it. It's funny that the legacy media is trying to put the impetus on social media for not censoring videos of people showing what's happening. Like, no one would be mad if you stop people from telling people what's going on. And yeah, think before you post. Oh, you're not supposed to say anything offensive to the United Kingdom? Hey, baked beans should not be for fucking breakfast. Oh, am I going to see some, what do they call them? What do they call the cops? In lorries, whatever? I don't know. Someone's going to throw me in the boot of their lorry. Right? You know what? Dentists are not science fiction, folks. You can get your teeth cleaned. I'm sorry if I offended an entire fucking island.
Update on Venezuela. Okay, so here I have
Bobbies. That was the word I was trying to come up with.
Go. Okay.
I would have been so much more funny if I could have thought of the word. And everybody, Bobbies. Yeah. All right. So go ahead.
What you could see, this is breaking. The Maduro regime has just taken one of the leaders of the opposition to jail. What you can see is Maria Oropezos decided to do a live stream as the police were breaking down her gate. She wanted the world to see. So you can see the cops break down her gate and then come up the stairs, and arrest her and take her phone and everything else. It's pretty chilling, actually, when you watch it. Mm-hmm. And if you scroll down to this one, it shows moments before. I didn't see that one. And she asks them if they have a warrant. They don't answer. She asks their name. They tell them it. Then she said, "Nice to meet you," and says, "I'm a lawyer," and her name. And I know that too is who the cop says. She asks again for the warrant. There's no answer. They just keep saying, "Open up," and eventually they break down the door and walk up the stairs.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, okay, so this is why it's the update, is because last week we talked about the Venezuelan election and how it seems pretty suspicious. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you don't bother illegally arresting people who lose elections against you. That's basically it. Yeah, if she'd have lost the election fair and square, if Maduro had just won a clean election, he wouldn't have bothered arresting anybody else in opposition.
I got nothing to add here. Update, Fraser study. The Toronto Star. If we end up with Pierre Poilievre as Prime Minister, it will be partly because of the groundwork done by right-wing think tanks in distorting the public debate over taxes. Most notably, the Fraser Institute, generously funded by wealthy interests, has been using its ample resources for decades to turn Canadians into tax haters. Like I needed some place to make me a tax hater.
The Conservatives and Fraser study have not turned Canadians into tax haters. The Liberals and the NDP have done that.
It went on to say to disconnect taxes in the public's mind from all the benefits, services, programs, and infrastructure that taxes provide to us. Yeah.
So it basically does the classic Fraser Institute argument, which is, oh, they're funded by a bunch of rich people, so you can't believe anything they say. Right? It doesn't matter who funds what. It's what is being said and is it legitimate? And it's really interesting that that's the argument, because in this same article, she says, although effective tax rates on the very rich are lower than on most Canadians, and then she cites policy alternatives. Now, policy alternatives, for anybody curious, here is, they haven't updated this in a decade. Weird. Here are the main donors to Policy Alternatives Canada. Now, you can't trust Fraser Institute because they're funded by a bunch of rich people who are pushing their own interests. But you can trust Policy Alternatives, whose main donors include BC Federation of Labour, BC Government Employees Union, BC Teachers Federation, Canadian Association of University Teachers, Labour Congress, Union of Public Employees.
Essentially unions and government. Yes?
Every single fucking one of these. Unifor, United Steel Workers, PSAC, Employees Union, Teachers Society, Employees Union.
We get it.
Yada, yada, yada.
Yes.
But don't trust Fraser Institute because they have an agenda.
I didn't need Fraser Institute to tell me that taxes were high, that we're being taxed to oblivion, that things are going up, that it isn't good. Like, this is, it's rather comical. It's just rather comical. I mean, what's nice about the Fraser Institute story is it breaks into the media realm where people start talking about it instead of just being like, life kind of sucks right now, eh? Now you have some fancy charts and some things to stare at.
Yep. The other nice thing about it is that they update their donor list more than once every decade.
Correct.
Say that 5 times fast.
Canada needs to get its poop in a group. Premier Doug Ford has a simple plea for the people of Ontario. Folks, don't be pooping on the beach. It's that simple.
All right. We're going to show you a quick clip here. I think it's very important. This is probably one of the most monumental things that Doug Ford has said in the past decade. So just wipe your ear holes real quick. You don't want to miss this.
Folks, don't be pooping on the beach. Simple as that. Yeah.
I don't know why that's funny, but I mean, it's kind of funny.
We have so many people shitting in random places in Canada that the premier of the most populous province, right? They got more people than fucking Quebec, right?
I believe so, yes.
Anyways, yeah, this guy had to do a fucking press conference telling people that we have toilets, we have toilet paper,
please,
and that
stop
you can
pooping
use
everywhere.
the fucking facilities. In this press conference, he went on to talk about how much money they spent putting shitters on that beach. And so anyway, and then there's a bunch of silly follow-up articles about it. But here's the other thing is this is kind of an update. So we talked about how Raj Grewal, the disgraced former member of parliament, had said explicitly last week that photo of the guy pooping in the parking lot was fake. Now, here is another video of a guy pooping. It's all blurred out.
You realize this is the same vehicle, right?
That's where I'm going with this.
Right.
Is that somebody paused this and grabbed the license plate off of it, and it's the same vehicle that the other guy was shitting next to the week before. So what are the chances that there's one just incredibly unlucky car that always has people shitting beside it, or maybe the original one was legitimate?
I like the comment. We got a serial pooper.
That's basically it. Like okay, it's just that book, Everybody Poops. It needs to be updated, and it should say everybody poops
Let's
inside.
move on. No, the poop, man. We're going to spend 5 minutes on poop. Things are looking up. Many Canadians believe the economy is in a recession, but Rebecca Young, a leading Canadian economist, has called for a corrective sentiment check, a timeout from the pessimism, or we might talk ourselves into decline, she warns. We might talk ourselves into it, too. Resorting to alarmism in response to Canada's polycrisis is not yielding results, Young says. There's a risk that the near-term pessimism morphs into medium-term paralysis, and that Young says work against sweeping transformations that are necessary, such as overhauls in tax and transfer systems, extensive reforms in health and education, right-sizing governments, or revitalization of cooperative federalism.
Oh, it's a bad thing that we want to right-size governments? You're inherently admitting that our public sector is way too fucking big. And then when you read the finer points of the justifications for why things aren't that bad in Canada, they include a breakout from this year's expected 1.5% GDP growth to close to 2% in 2025 and in each following year to the end of the decade. Business investment is forecast to strongly rebound from this year's expected decline of 0.8% to an average of 2.6% growth between 2025 and 2029. Now, Sean, what do you think might be the large contributing factor as to why things might change drastically between where we are right now and the years 2025 to 2029?
A different leader.
A different leader. Thank you. Okay, this article is saying things aren't that bad right now because a year from now, Trudeau is going to be gone. But they're not explicitly saying that. They're saying like, oh, things aren't that bad right now. Well, why aren't they that bad? Well, because in the future, they're going to get better. What's going to change on these exact dates you're talking about? Well, Trudeau is going to spend the rest of his life sitting in a beanbag chair in the basement smoking a bong.
The other Randy Endgame. Ethics Commissioner Conrad von Finkenstein, and I have to say this every time I say this, that's got to be one of the greatest names out there, von Finkenstein, is taking another look at concerns Employment Minister Randy Beausoleil stayed in touch with his former company after being appointed to cabinet. Parliament's Ethics Commissioner has been studying whether Beausoleil was an active participant in the medical supply business he co-owned after he appointed to cabinet, which would have him violating ethics rules. We've been talking about this other Randy thing now for like way too long. It seems so blatantly obvious that this is him. And it said, when I get that, I will determine whether Mr. Anderson is using the name in vain or whether there were actually conversations. This is von Finkenstein going, do we need to open this back up? Because what they're saying, at least as far as I can see, is that he was using Randy's name now, like he was talking to him, but he wasn't. But that would conflict with the spell check.
They're saying he was name dropping him.
Correct.
But there's a couple interesting things here. Von Finkelstein put it all together, apparently, when he was reading all these articles about it that laid it out very succinctly how fucking suspicious this entire thing is. Okay? And this is the guy who burned down his somebody burned down his warehouse as soon as he was facing 6 different lawsuits alleging fraud from 6 different companies. And then the weird thing is you've got this literal multi-million-dollar company with hundreds of employees, millions of dollars worth of government contracts. And Randy Beausoleil, in this article, says that, just because of all this media scrutiny and the bad press and everything like that, he abandoned his 50% stake in the company. He gave up all his shares in a multi-million-dollar company with hundreds of employees. He just said, here, you guys can have them back. I don't need anything. You just keep them. Just keep them. It's all good. Does that not seem a little bit fucking suspicious? Because I get the fact that they get all kinds of free travel and free perks and a great pension. But if you have $7 million worth of shares in some random company, you don't just be like, oh, here, I just because I'm a nice guy, you can have all of it. Fuck no.
There's nothing to see. It isn't him. The government finally does some digging An Ontario property owner says he was quoted roughly $400,000 in total costs for a provincially mandated archaeological assessment and dig after shards of stone were found in his field that have been identified as Indigenous artifacts. Bruce Castle said he told the Ministry of Culture and Multiculturalism that he could face steep fines or even jail time under the Ontario Heritage Act for disrupting the artifacts. The process began more than 4 years ago when Castle decided to develop a field that he used to farm in the township of North Dumfries in Waterloo region.
That's what happens when people shit outside in the winter.
Castles, who is 75 years old, wanted to build a house on his land for himself and his wife to retire to, but he first needed to get an archaeological assessment. The archaeologist who he hired performed the stage assessment in 2020 and a second stage in 2021. He received a budget for the remaining stages of process around the end of 2022, he said, which totaled around $400,000 and included fees to have relevant Indigenous groups inspect the site.
So there's no market demand for this. There's no special interest groups. There's no heritage people with First Nations that say, we want to know what's on here. There's just a government rule that says you need to pay them to come dig everything the fuck up. It's bullshit. It's insane. You can't build a house because there's a bunch of arrowheads. Could you imagine how many houses would exist in Saskatchewan and Alberta if you couldn't build anything where there are arrowheads? Think about it this way. If we went through 5 or 7 or 8,000 years with no grocery stores, we just had to kill all our own meat. How much brass do you think would be lying around?
How much brass?
Yeah.
Say that again. I'm zoning out.
Grocery stores don't
I just
exist
think this
anymore.
story is ridiculous.
Okay. Grocery stores don't exist anymore, Sean. Okay?
Yes.
The place where you
we have to go back to killing everything.
Yeah, so you go out, you kill
There's
everything.
There's going to be everywhere.
Fast forward 5 or 7,000 years, there's going to be a lot of brass.
Everywhere.
And that's what this is. This is all. It's all like you're looking at, arrowhead, busted arrowhead. You've got, I don't even know what that is, but
listen,
it looks like a scraper, right?
You got a giant scraper. If it's a giant, huge find, right? It's monumental find.
Buy
it
off.
Go
of him.
Big League Teppy. Buy it off them and move on.
Or
don't force him to pay the $400,000 to find a whole bunch of stuff that, as Tooz is pointing out, is going to be everywhere because they roam the lands killing what they ate. Instead, he's on the ticket for way too much money that takes way too much time that is just government tape to get in the way.
No one's going to buy this fucking place. He can't sell it.
Right.
Yeah, and you know what? Or throw it out and just be like, look, we found some arrowheads, but we're going to dig a house here in 6 months. So anybody interested? Dig up as much as you want, and feel free to leave the dirt off to the side. It'll save us for the digging out the basement. But come, fill your boots. Do whatever you want. And
the story reminds me, Tooz, of Jocelyn Berziak in Manitoba, and her land being deemed something and trying to develop it, and the fight that came through
the wetland.
Yes. Right? Like, this is a different version of it. It's just a different version of red tape surrounded developing your own private land. It is getting to insane levels, which shouldn't surprise us, but it does surprise us.
Why is housing so expensive? This fucking shit.
Trump hates commies. Republican U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump parroted baseless conspiracy theories about Prime Minister Justin Trudeau possibly being the son of former Cuban President Fidel Castro on Monday's live stream. That made all the headlines. I mean, it's got everybody across Canada talking about it. All it took was Donald Trump mentioning it, and now there's like pictures of Castro and Trudeau side by side.
Like just the classic ones that we've been looking at for years. I remember I was talking to my one sister, and she was just baffled. She's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And then me and her husband were joking back and forth about it, and she definitely doesn't lean the same way I do in politics. I don't know the finer points of it, but I know we disagree. And so she just opens up her phone, she's scrolling through, and then she's like, "Holy shit." I found it was interesting that one of the big arguments in this, and I got a lot of time for Tristan Hopper 99% of the time. I think this is the only time I've ever really disagreed with him, was this it references the original article he wrote about debunking this idea. And he said that, yeah, Trudeau looks a lot like Castro, but Pierre Trudeau looks a lot like Castro. No, the fuck he doesn't.
I agree. I actually really agree. Like when you pulled up photos of them, you're like, they don't look anything alike.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Like, we should demand JT just give us a DNA. He's single now. Ladies, it probably wouldn't be that hard to get some Justin Trudeau DNA from, for science purposes. You got to take one for the team.
Stop. Oh, my God. All right.
Okay.
Unsafe supply. Talking about unsafe supply, Justin Trudeau's supply. All right. Yeah, the clever little headline after we're talking Trudeau being single. Last autumn, BC's top doctor, Bonnie Henry, commissioned a confidential report from American drug policy expert Jonathan Calkins examining the economics of safer supply diversion. The document was completed in March, but unbeknownst to pretty much everyone. Quoted, as long as safer supply gives valuable things away for free, or far below market prices, one should expect there will also be profiteers wishing to profit by obtaining safer supply for resale, Calkins wrote in the report, which examined the potential impact of charging users for their supply, safer supply opioids versus providing them for free, as is the current case. Calkins argued that clever retail drug dealers, could sign up for the low barrier, safer supply programs to obtain cheaper and higher quality drugs. Alternatively, dealers could pay drug users to sign up for these programs for the purpose of diverting more supply to the black market. You may recall Tooz and I talking about exactly this, over the last year. This has been a big talking, argument.
And they had an internal report saying
done
this
by an American
thing, and then they would go out and do press conferences and saying the exact fucking opposite. The interesting thing in there is it said that it increased the supply of street drugs by 30%.
So it says the province dispensed. You wonder how much safer supply is like dispensing. It literally states how much, in this report. The province of British Columbia dispensed 88.8 million milligrams of safer supply hydromorphine during 2022-2023 fiscal year. The equivalent to at least 11 million tablets were freely dispensed, According to Calkins, the province's safer supply program dispensed so many opioids that their total MME, morphine milligram equivalence, is the standardized measure for opioid strength, is equivalent to 30% of the total MME prescribed for pain-related purposes across the entirety of Canada. Safer supply programs in just one province have increased the total pharmaceutical opioid supply in the entire country by almost one-third. One shudders to think what these numbers would look like once safer supply dispensations in other provinces are eventually revealed and factored in.
I think it makes sense if you think about it that one of the big limiting factors to how many crackheads are hanging around in alleys waving their dicks at you at 7 a.m. on a Saturday is that there's a bunch of people who probably would become crackheads waving their dick at you in an alley at 7 a.m. on Saturday, but they can't get the drugs that would cause their life to go into a downward spiral where they're waving their dick at you in an alley at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. And so now by increasing the supply, you've now essentially just enabled a whole lot more people who, I guess it kind of sucks because you're taking away a bit of their free will, but they can't get the drugs that would cause them to downward spiral into that situation. So they have no choice but to be an accomplished member of society with a job and a family. And now we give them the option, they're dick waving.
With all this talk of dick waving, it's this time I should remind people, if they're watching on X, to probably give us a retweet so other people can hear Tooz's rants about said dick waving. And if you're watching anywhere else, make sure to like the show, and that way you're updated on any time we're coming live, which is Fridays, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, to talk about dick waving. I can't believe how many times that's been said in the last minute. But if you're watching us and enjoying the program, make sure
repeating it.
Make sure you retweet, subscribe, like us, follow us wherever you're watching. Make sure to just let other people know this is happening if you're enjoying the show. Banging on Bangladesh's door. Thousands of Bangladeshi citizens have taken to the streets over the past few weeks in anti-government protests, and on Sunday they stormed the official residence of Prime Minister Sheikh Hassani for forcing her to flee the country for India and resign. Bangladesh has been in turmoil over the past few weeks as citizens protest high unemployment, government job quotas which aim to benefit veterans, aka the families of the guerrilla militants that fought against Pakistan in 1971 to form Bangladesh, and corruption in general. Young people are particularly angry about the quota system, which gives 30% of government jobs to families of the guerrilla militants, keeping many qualified students and job candidates from pursuing opportunities. I do want to point out 11,000 citizens have been arrested in Bangladesh over the past few weeks, and 94 people died in Sunday alone. More than 300 protesters have been reportedly been killed by the police.
Okay, so I guess to recap, people in Bangladesh are mad because there's corruption in the government. There's quotas that stop people from getting decent jobs. There's too much public sector, and a lot of that public sector goes to the people that the government decides are the right people for those jobs. And they got mad to the point where they kicked the leader of the country out of the country, and they're now in exile, forced exile, fleeing from the ramifications of their decisions. I mean, it's just an interesting thing to think about. I mean, imagine if you lived in a country like that.
Are you trying to draw some similarities too?
I'm just musing. I'm just speculating. Like, just how interesting would it be to see that exact kind of thing start to unfold in a country, and then maybe it gets to the point where if you had like a leader with a private jet that he flies around everywhere on all the time anyway, maybe you just scare the fucker onto it and move on with your lives. I don't know. It's interesting. It's a fun little thought experiment.
Sask Party is half liberal. Here you go. Latest Saskatchewan polls modeled out the NDP at 33 seats and the Sask Party at 28 seats. If I scroll down, 48% NDP, 47% for the Sask Party, 5% for the other. That's one of the things that we plan to do with this show is have the live election update. With this show, we're going to be live doing the Sask election.
And Sean wants us to do the U.S. one too. For anybody who tuned into the Alberta one when we did it, it was wildly successful. And I don't know if I know enough about the U.S. stuff to really speak to it accurately for hours on end, but it would be fun to try.
Yes. Now, so as far as Saskatchewan goes, are we looking at we could have NDP back into?
It's starting to look like that. You've got this completely irrelevant, unserious party, and also the NDP in Saskatchewan. So the Sask Party has done what? What have they done to actually improve things? Their policy, basically since Scott Moe took over, has been to be marginally less shitty than the NDP. They're trying to just capitalize on median voter theorem, saying that if we're just a little bit less horrible than the NDP and we just coast, we're just going to coast down the North Saskatchewan and we're only going to paddle enough to not run into the banks. That's not how you want to run things. That's not how you get anywhere. And now they're reaping the rewards of that. It's a great short-term solution, but eventually everybody gets fed the fuck up with it.
It'll be interesting to watch here as we get closer and closer.
I think Sask United, if they change how they're doing their messaging, they could be in a really good situation. Just be like, look, neither of these you've got a bunch of idiots over here, and you've got a bunch of people who just want to be slightly less idiotic. Why don't you vote for somebody you want to win? And then you could maybe win on it.
Time to bail. A 39-year-old man is wanted for a brazen carjacking last week, and you know what? I think I have here. I'll show the video as I talk. People can see what the heck I'm talking about. Okay, you see the person. Oh, there we go. Okay, it says investigators allege they have identified Jan Zail Singh Sidhu of no fixed address as a suspect in the auto theft. Quoted, it was learned the suspect had been just released following a bail hearing on unrelated charges from police custody in the number 1 district prior to the carjacking. So you can see that the lady tried to get in and pull him out, and then, Another person pulled him front, so he couldn't leave, and it was to no avail. He eventually,
and then he half rips his door off, rips
Correct.
rips the nozzle out of the. Do you think she had to pay for the gas?
probably.
I don't know. But anyway, it's this guy literally leaves his bail hearing, and he's like, "Well, fuck, I got no way to get home. Oh, there's a gas station."
Pretty much.
He walks out of the courtroom. He gets released on bail. Now, I get the fact that we release everybody who's never been to Coots in Canada on bail. But if someone literally just walks out, goes up to the nearest gas station, and rips off a car, maybe you should have been looking a little bit more closely at whether or not he should have been released on bail. Am I crazy? Somebody tell me I'm crazy.
You're not crazy. And in case anyone was wondering, he's still at large, and there was his picture. So we're giving you more than the police would like to do. There you go.
Well, who cares if he's at large or not? If they arrest him, he'll just get out on bail. Who gives a shit? It's the same result with less taxpayer cost.
You're not wrong. Arrive can. I can't believe you put Arrive can. Arrive scam. Oh.
Buddy. I was about 17 seconds from going live, and I was still coming up with headlines.
Like
I still don't even have them all.
Sounds like it was a Two's problem. You're yelling.
It was a Two's.
You're yelling too. Anyways,
it was a
Diane Daly.
It was caused by Sean.
Diana Daly, a federal government procurement manager, says Lisanne Bolduc, Director General for Public Service and Procurement Canada, tried to intimidate her into silence, and she says she recorded the conversation and has email proof of said conversation.
Yeah, this whole Arrive can thing is getting real dark real quick, which it's about fucking time. But here's this is interesting. I'm just going to play a real quick clip here.
In your opinion, who are these officials? Who are the senior managers and the political appointees? Name them, please.
I'm going to likely, these are the people that are likely going to get me fired, right?
Yes, but you're compelled to answer, Ms. Daly, as difficult as it is.
Don't we have whistleblower protection in Canada? We literally have whistleblower protection in Canada. And this woman is compelled to testify. And she says, if I testify, I'm going to get fucking fired. And then the Conservative MP says, I'm fully aware of that. You are still, however, required by law to tell us. Neither one of them is addressing the fact that there are completely toothless laws protecting whistleblowers in this country.
Yes. It's very, I don't know. What's the word, Twos? Is it sad? Is it sobering? Is it just
it's
like,
fucked.
Yeah,
it's fucking fucked.
And it comes on a long line of talking about the Rive scam for like way too long. And more details just keeps coming to the surface where you're like, holy Dinah. Edmonton gets more gay. I thought this was actually a joke. So, like, I had no idea this was actually a thing. I live under a rock.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, the Lakeland area isn't really well known for doing things like this. So,
okay, so the Alberta capital may be able to do just. They're one of the 10 cities running to host the 2030 Gay Games, and you may go, the what now? Is that a joke? Are they trying to get the Olympics? What are we talking about? No, there's actually a gay game.
No, it's their NHL team.
That brings together the world's finest LGBTQ2SI plus athletes. All 10 cities, including Edmonton, will present their hosting bid to the Federation of Gay Games in October, where a decision will be made to narrow the field down to just 3 finalists in December. It is the 13th iteration of these games, and the inaugural event was in 1982. So, at this point, I'm like, okay.
Is it extreme or weird for me to say that if you want to get in a ring as a dude and punch a woman in the face a whole bunch while pretending to be a chick, you already have an entire fucking event? Like this whole thing, this is built for you. Do that here. This is specifically what it's designed for. Okay. I also think it's kind of funny that they also include other events aside from the mainstream ones. Because, I mean, like some of them, I imagine, transfer better than others. Like the baton relay with a bunch of gay dudes might be a little bit iffy. So cut that one out. And then there are also some major unique competitions, such as ballroom dancing and bowling. if someone's gonna go as a spectator to watch the gay games, I would be really hesitant of going to an event called Ballroom with Ballroom in it anywhere.
I wasn't sure where he was going with that one, folks, but there you have it. The NDP are not a serious party. Well, this has been a growing thing as well. Okay, first we start with the Housing Hub program. It is a supply-based program. It's not an affordability program, explained Michael Pistrin, Vice President of Development for BC Housing. The whole intent of the Housing Hub was just to build more housing, and it was intended to be market rate rental housing. Although if you go far enough back, that's not what they said, and they're getting smacked in the polls.
The exact quote was, another affordable rental housing building will be soon available for all people who live and work in Vancouver. This was in 2021.
Correct.
And then now, fast forward, they're like, "Oh yeah, it's just that we built houses. It's not about being affordable."
And that leads to
their argument. Oh, go ahead.
That leads to the next story that's part of this, which is the biggest development in provincial politics this year is the way the BC Conservatives have steadily closed ground on the BC NDP, a trend documented in succession of opinion polls from Research Co. Back in January, the Conservatives were already in second place in the research poll, but 21 points behind the NDP. By April, the gap was 18, then 10 in May, 7 in June, and now it says just 3 points here in July, 41% versus 38% among decided voters. So Conservatives are pulling in the NDP fast every single month as the election gets closer.
And every time I read about this, I'm A, happy and feel like an idiot. B, I met John Rustad at that Tucker Carlson event that Jason mentioned, and didn't know who he was. He said he's from this upstart BC Conservative Party, and they're going to do big things, and they're going to win the next election. And I was like, yeah, I'm being polite, but in my head, I'm like, yeah, I've heard this story before. I've seen this. Oh, this one's a classic, right? And then lo and behold, this guy is putting it together. So actually, Sask United, you should
be looking at the BC
looking at exactly what he's doing, talking to his strategist, picking his brain. Whatever they're doing is working, and you have a chance to make it work. You still have time in Saskatchewan. I would get on that.
Wanda Bennett, Olympic bowling. The balls are bigger, I guess. Everybody's getting in on the fun today.
Yeah.
Holland is lame. You may recall Minister Holland telling us not to go on family road trips because of, destroying the planet. Well, Trudeau's health minister, Mark Holland, was asked if the Liberals should replace Trudeau to turn things around like the Democrats have done stateside. His bizarre answer included talking about going to the Olympics, and apparently he hates the movie Bring It On. Weird.
So I guess it's a minute. It's an absolute ramble. Like there's nothing in that has any semblance of reality. We're all stupid for having listened to it, and may God have mercy on his soul. Right. But it's just, the question was about Trudeau. He never even mentioned him once.
Correct.
He mentioned the fact that he flew with his mother to France for the Olympics. I'd like to find out if we paid for her to go to the Olympics, by the way. He's a liberal, so I feel like she was his prom date, and then she's been his +1 at some weddings, and now she's got to go with him to the
I'm
Olympics.
not giving this guy any more airtime. This guy's a moron. I don't want him. I don't even want to talk to him on the boat.
He told us to not go on road trips this summer, and then he flew his mom
to the Olympics.
All right, now we're all out of headlines because of Sean's technical shit. So we're going to talk about the next one is the Toronto protesters who got run over and the guy who got arrested for it.
Here you go. This is what happened, okay? A man has been arrested after multiple protesters were struck on the Gardiner Expressway Tuesday morning. Toronto police said the protesters started on the expressway at Jervis Street and involved about 40 people, prompting road closures in the area. Toronto police said police would not confirm what the protest was about. A partial video circulating on social media of an aerial view of the scene showed a vehicle striking people as they blocked traffic. And as you can tell, it was a pro-Palestine event, and they were trying to close off.
That's why they wouldn't say what it was about, by the way.
Correct.
All right. this isn't this guy's fault. The people whose fault this is the cops. Absolutely. If you'd have arrested the first person who showed up on one of these protests that's blocking off traffic, you just be like, look, you can't sit here, and it's time for you to go to jail. That would be fine. And then when they start cementing their hands onto the wall, onto there, like they do sometimes, or gluing themselves or whatever, you set up some pylons, everybody goes around, and then after that guy shit himself for a couple days, he's going to get somebody to break him out, and then they're never going to do it again. You keep setting up these situations where people are incentivized to do it again because there's no repercussions for them. There's no consequences, and they get the positive coverage. Nothing goes wrong for them when they block traffic with their bodies, and they get positive media coverage. It's a perfect situation to just encourage more of it, and it's the cops' fault, 100%.
Pinky Betts says, are we still allowed to talk, or are we going to jail? For now, sitting in this country, we're not going to jail, but it's kind of what I posted on X before we started, is like, you know, this entire show means me and Twos will be in jail at some point. I feel like,
yes.
Maybe I'm wrong. Like, I don't know anymore. If we were sitting in the UK, I'd probably be getting my door busted down by now, I think.
Wouldn't it be awesome to be doing a live stream talking about how fucked up the world is, and then
get arrested?
The Gestapo is booting down your door in the background?
I personally just
That's
rather not have them come.
That's a life goal. Yeah. I'd be good with that. Like, you guys are fucking idiots. Hey, everybody retweet this. Look at these schmucks. Hey, you want a microphone? Sit down for a little while. All right. Next article is Okaloosa County suspect in Spider's death arrested.
This is just, you know, we've been talking about so many dark subjects. I apologize if you're a spider lover, but this is kind of hilarious in the sense that we're talking about a spider after, you know, like on all the stories we've talked about. But an Okaloosa County woman was arrested Monday after she allegedly drowned her roommate's pet spider, according to Okaloosa County Sheriff Office. 43-year-old Eileen Rasmussen of the Crestview area admitted she drowned her roommate's pet jumping spider in ginger ale on July 15th at home on Pansy Avenue, and she faces a misdemeanor and animal cruelty and petty theft charges for doing such.
Where do you even start with this? What
I
the
don't
hell
think
is
there's
wrong
anywhere
with
to
these
start.
people? How can you? Did she drown it in front of her roommate? Like, it's a fucking spider. Also, just go outside and get another one.
Like I said, this is like the interlude of like comedy in life. I'm not suggesting go drown all the spiders, but at the same time, if we're gonna arrest people for spiders, like, I mean,
and like, just flush it down the toilet if you want to get rid of it. It's that easy.
Yeah.
We get a few random spiders in here every once in a while, and they just go, they get the whirlpool. All right, sinking ship. So Pablo Rodriguez is considering his running for leadership of the Quebec Liberals. So much to Justin Trudeau's, actually, you know what? This is probably one that he'd be happy about, because as much as I hate this fucking guy we're looking at right now, he does have the best hair in Parliament, and Trudeau's probably a little bit jealous.
Yeah, he's thinking about getting out. Just like all of them.
So he's a minister, and so we've been talking about just the latest. Every time there's another liberal who's like, oh yeah, I just remembered I left the oven on. I'm not going to run for re-election. We bring it up and we point out that there's nobody left. There's nobody left man in the walls, and that castle is about to fall. All right. Now the next one we have is the ISIS terrorist.
His rant today is about how I screwed him up, and he doesn't have the headlines done. Like, welcome to the show, folks. 119 in, we're still screwing it up on a daily basis. That's what you get here. Is we do not have this thing ironed out completely, and that's the fun of it. Now, to the borders. Canadians are learning a man who allegedly dismembered someone on video on behalf of ISIS immigrated to Canada on Trudeau's watch. Last month, police arrested him and his son while they were allegedly planning a terrorist attack in Toronto. And who is in government, Trudeau's government, and is responsible for this massive failure? This was a Pierre Poilievre tweet on this current subject. Or this.
What happened is that ISIS released one of those scary videos where they're doing a bunch of evil shit. And the guy in the video who was cutting the hands and feet off a dude they were crucifying in the desert ended up applying for and getting Canadian citizenship.
Yeah.
And then when he got here, they arrested this fucking asshole after he had just finished making one of those, we did this terrorist act for whatever, blah, blah, blah. He did his big evil genius exposition video right before he went to do the attack, and then they arrested him. And this guy, hey, a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. Remember when Trudeau said that? Like, we let any fucking person in here we want to. How many people is that guy going to kill? I get the fact that they're all in Ontario, so they're not, sure, fair enough. There's too many of them anyway, but there's easier ways to get rid of them.
Police. Toronto police say an internal investigation is underway after a video circulating on social media appeared to show an officer giving a citizen the middle finger over an argument about alleged illegal parking last week. So a citizen walks up, has on a form of camera and his glasses, as I understand, and notices that a police is parked in a no parking zone as they go to get coffee. Calls him on it, and they don't have a really good answer. Eventually, as they're leaving, they give him the bird. And it was really interesting to me, too, is because I watched Sid 60 on whatever morning television in Toronto talk about
Breakfast
how,
television.
it's the cops and you got to cut him a break. And then his co-host kind of says, well, for context, they did just, increase the rates for illegal parking in the city. And, maybe citizens aren't quite happy about that. But I want to kind of stay out of it. And you're like, well, maybe the cops should, I don't know, clue into what the heck they're doing to the citizens and then not go against their own bloody rules as if there's a double standard.
Well, yeah. So first off, Sid 60, I don't know if he's ever said anything that isn't fucking stupid.
Well, I used to think he was. I
disagree with him on everything.
I used to think when it was him and Tim on Tim and Sid, right? When he would have his rants, there was every once in a while I'd be like, I don't mind that. But since he's went to morning television, it's like
all 100% garbage. Here's the thing: is they were speculating back and forth, and then the sort of what's getting hinted at in the media is that this guy was he was trying to trap them. He was trying to trap them into parking illegally. He was trying to trap them into parking. Did he put up the fucking sign that says "Don't park here"? Did they go in for coffee and he just hung the sign real quick and said, "Oh, look." No, he goes up to some cops parked illegally and says, "What makes you think you're so fucking special that you can do this and you would ticket the shit out of us or tow us or both?" And he was a lot more nice about it than I was.
And the host of the morning show, once again, I come back to it because that was the last clip I watched before we started, kept saying, well, they work 11-hour days. I'm like, buddy,
I wish I only worked 11-hour days.
Come out here and talk to all these guys.
Much energy I would have if I only worked 11 hours
I worked a 12-hour day today. I get to do whatever I want. I'm like, well, you come up to where we work, and you're going to see some illegal stuff then because that's what everybody does. That's life.
Well, yeah, you just have a note and you'd be like, I started work at 4:30 in the morning and it's now 8:00 at night. I'm legally entitled to do whatever the fuck I want. Signed, 222 minutes.
Trudeau. There was a couple videos. I'll just pull this up too, as you can say what you want. It's Trudeau showing up to
Trudeau, the
Jasper.
known, verified, unquestionable feminist. Walks right past Danielle Smith and gives some other person right next to her just totally snubs. Like the way he's been done. And I get it that this has happened to him on the international stage probably a dozen times that we've even seen videos of, let alone how many other times it's happened where they're like, dude, the grown-ups are talking. Go fucking eat some crayons. But this exact clip has happened to Trudeau where he's been the other person how many different times, and then he finally gets a chance to do it to somebody else because he's a tiny little pin dick fucking bully. He does it.
Update on Anita. Canadians need to... forgive me. This was last week's story of... What's Anita's last name, too, as I'm spacing on it right now. Thank you. They had the big blow-up in the group of women having the...
they asked a group of sexual assault survivors to come to Ottawa to testify. And when they were opening up about it and speaking about what happened and the ramifications, whatever else, Anita Vandenbeld totally bogarts the whole fucking thing, tries to make it about conservatives and abortion, and the women who they asked to fly to Ottawa to testify in this thing leave the room in tears partway through, not like at the end of it. They got up and they left.
And so the update is she put out a big giant, I don't know, post,
How
essay.
many words? How many words do you think that is?
I don't know. It was a lot. And I was just going to read part of it. All right. Is that fair? I hope this is, I hope this makes, it was the best part. Anyways, she writes, Canadians need to understand the significant shift that has taken place in our politics in recent years. It is no longer about debating issues and policies. It is about undermining the very institutions that allow for that debate to occur. It is no longer about collegial disagreements between honorable members, but about destroying the other person, their reputation, their sense of security, their family, and their willingness to continue in public life. I know that by writing this, I will face even more attacks, but I believe in my heart that Canadians care, that they care about our democracy and our decency, that they care about living in a world where fairness and equality and the rights of everyone are respected. Nobody wants to live in a world where might makes right. And what I wanted to say on this, because she says a lot of important things,
it's
or
almost
things that I enjoy.
2,600 words.
There you go. She says a lot of things in it that I'm like, I actually agree with you there. I actually agree with you there. I actually agree with you there. The problem is you've been in government, the Liberals have, and you've created this. And why have you created this? Because everything you want now is what you did to the other side through, at least, if we're going to go, I don't know how far back we want to go, but certainly COVID. We all saw it in COVID. We shut down. Yep. We did not talk. That's your government. You created this beast. And so now you're getting attacked by it, which I don't agree with some of the things that have been said about her or done to her. Like, that's terrible. But you created this atmosphere. You're part of the machine that did this.
When I said she looks like a dumb cow right before a lightning storm, was that out of line?
Well, anytime you attack somebody for their looks or their,
to be fair, I prefaced it by attacking her on her content for about 5 minutes before that.
Sure.
And that was kind of just the value add. I
just look at it and I go, she's crying right now because she's being attacked for everything, which for everything, I don't know is that the right way to go about things? Probably not. But they've created the atmosphere of where we're at. They're the actual government. They're literally like, you reap what you sow, folks. And the Liberals, whether you love or hate them, right? She makes some valid points in her 2,600-page essay. But the problem is she takes no accountability for the government that has created the atmosphere for where we're at. And that's my issue with Anita and this whole bloody thing.
They're a 6-year-old running around the playground, kicking everybody in the balls. And then when somebody kicks them in the balls, like the 8th, 9th, 10th, 20th time, they're like, hey, you can't just go around kicking people in the balls. Well, yeah, you're right. But you have done it far more than anybody else, and there is no sympathy for you. There is no latitude. All of the shit that you guys have done over the years, everything you're saying there, I like where you were going with this. I quite like it. You're absolutely right. But they set the rules of engagement.
They set the rules of engagement. I agree.
Yeah.
Next up is Deadpool. We had, me and Tuza talked, Deadpool Wolverine, that after the last mashup, we needed to go watch this movie. I'm not a giant, I haven't gone to a movie in a very long time. 3 young kids, I don't know. And the state of movies right now has not been great. So,
hey, Twisters
Deadpool
was good. And actually, when I went and saw Twisters, there was a guy in the front row. Yeah, and there was a guy, you got to try this. If you've never done it in your life, there was some random guy in the front row in the far corners with Tourette's. And so just randomly during the movie, you just hear this like, hup. And something, like, oh, there's a giant tornado coming at him. Hup. Oh, it's like this monumental sort of, intense emotional scene. Hup. And it was kind of like going to an auction. But I mean, obviously the guy knew about his situation because he sat like the furthest away from anybody there that he could have been. And it wasn't like he was being obnoxious about it. And so it was just kind of fun and interesting that this random, and it's not like he was swearing or anything like that.
So did
He
it
wasn't
add
like
to the movie? Is what you're saying is
it added to the experience. It didn't add or subtract from the movie, but it was definitely a really fun experience.
Okay, well, let's get back to Deadpool Wolverine. We both looked at it. We both superhero guys. We looked at it and went, this is pretty cool. Like Deadpool, it's one of those characters where Ryan Reynolds fits it to a T. It's just he's made for the part. And if you were going to argue other superheroes, you'd probably think Tony Stark, right? Like Robert Downey Jr. was perfect. And the guy that also comes to mind is Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. They combine together, and now you have this movie. I found this. I thought Twos would get a kick out of this. It said the word, the F-bomb is said in the MCU 119 times. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, 1 time. Deadpool and Wolverine 118 times. Right? So if you want to get a feel for what the movie is like, I mean, the opening scene where he uses a dead skeleton of Wolverine from the final time Wolverine was in a movie to kill I don't even know. I took Mel with me.
50 people while he's dancing along to NSYNC.
Right. Backstreet Boys. Isn't it Backstreet Boys?
Yeah.
You kind of get the feel for how the movie's going to go. Mel was like, this is a bit much, as she's sitting beside me. And I'm like, I may have brought the wrong person. But she was giggling when Channing Tatum came on with that funny accent. And
Dude. Okay, so let me just stop.
You don't want to spoil too many things.
Just go see it. There's some really cool characters that you wouldn't expect to show up. Even like that one big switch around where you're kind of expecting things to go one way and they go the completely other way. You're like, oh no way, that's awesome.
Can I at least show one spoiler? Can I show one spoiler? Just so people get a feel for what they're going to see.
Sure.
There. Okay. There is no Fox Marvel Universe or MCU without Blade first creating a market. He's Marvel Daddy. That's Wesley Snipes.
The best line of the movie, by the way.
Which was
Wesley Snipes. I'm not gonna say it. If it's the best line of the movie and we're telling people they should go see it, I'm not gonna be like, here it was. Jesus Christ.
Well, I tell you what, there's a. It's a fun movie.
I went and saw it in 3D.
It's a fun movie.
That opening sequence was really good. That's where I got these glasses.
I've swore off 3D movies. I think it's a waste of time.
Dude.
It's a waste of time.
Whoa.
Waste of time.
You look really old in 3D.
That's fine. Oh, my wisdom.
These are 3D, and you look like you're 40.
If you haven't gone and seen it, and you do enjoy some superhero content with some colorful language, then you need to go see Deadpool Wolverine. I suggest. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie, and it made me chuckle more than once. Twos overall. Would you recommend the movie?
Your forehead looks like a brine nutsack that got left out in the sun.
Am I moving on yet? Are you gonna join the conversation there with your 3D glasses?
It was a great movie, and I'm glad I went. Democracy expert who twice represented Canada abroad as an election observer yesterday was censored for cheating at the polls in Quebec. That's David Gilchrist of Montreal was fined $1,250. Of course, this is Blacklocks doing what they do, and people will be happy to note that I've got Tom Korski coming back on here in about 10 days. So Blacklocks, we got a lot of time for what they do. Twos, your thoughts on the story?
This guy is an election observer. Now, presumably, if it'd be like, okay, a referee. To ref whatever sport you want, you have to understand how the game works. You have to understand what's in and out of bounds, what's legal and what isn't. And then for this guy to vote separately in two different ridings, come on. And the crazy thing is that this is just coming out now. It's not as though I think this one vote or this little bit of chicanery had any effective outcome on the last election. But we're finding this out now? And here's the thing.
It's Quebec.
There's one. Yeah, it's fucking Quebec. All right. Now we got to talk. Happy news.
Usually it's Twos who's sticking it in. If you're a first-time watcher of this show, normally we shoot for about an hour and 15 minutes, but when we have guests come on, sometimes it bleeds a little long, and I feel like I'm like Twos over. I left for a month, And every day I tune in and they go for like 2 hours. I'm like, Twos needs. Anyways, we're doing a Twos thing today. Happy news! Carlos Yulos is the second Filipino to ever win a gold medal, so the country is showering him with money, houses, free food for life, and a whole bunch of other things. Here,
including colonoscopies. Yep.
Yep, there you go. So it shows a whole bunch of different things. 10 million pesos, 174 grand from the government, an additional 3 million for the House of Representatives, another 3 million from the Chooks to Go of Bounty Fresh Investments, and it just goes unlimited travel visas for him and his girlfriend, free lifetime ferry rides between the islands, 2 million pesos worth of free stays from Lost Villa, and I mean, on and on. Free college, a free wedding venue when he needs it, I don't know, Twos. How much further do you want me to go down?
That's pretty good. I'd like to know what a chook is. It says it's in a saying, munting pasalasamat mulasa. I have no idea, but I think that's pretty cool.
Here's some other happy news. This is 33-year-old. Yeah, I think so. 33-year-old Alice Finot from France proposed to her boyfriend after finishing the 3,000-meter steeplechase.
Okay. No? So, yeah, I guess if your boyfriend is from France, you're probably going to have to propose to him.
Twos doesn't like it because it's a woman proposing. That's what you're getting.
I don't know. It's just weird. I'm not ready for that yet, I guess.
Fair. Okay. All right. I thought it was, she finishes the race, she goes over, gets it done. But you're right.
I mean, props to him for, dating an Olympian. Now engaged. Yep. You got to lock that up.
Community notes, Twos. Community notes.
All right. August 24th, Crossfield Demo Derby. The Crossfield Elks are putting on the annual Demo Derby. It's a bunch of cars smashing the shit out of each other. There's going to be popcorn. What more do you want?
Probably not a whole lot. Demo Derbies are just fantastic in general. Mm-hmm. What else? Is there anything else before we get out of here? 119.
August 16th. So next weekend, Sundry Music Festival.
Next Friday, I will be back in studio for the first time in a month and a half. Mm-hmm. I'll actually be in studio. So 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, next Friday, a week today, 1:20. Coming at you. Twos, as always, to Jason Levine for hopping on and then putting us on his channels. I don't know if he knew exactly what he was getting into. But I hope he's
probably issuing an apology right now. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
And to anyone that's first time watching, for all you who shared, tuned in, like I say, you can find us on X. You can tune in every Friday, 10 a.m. Thanks for hopping in with us, and we'll be back in a week's time to discuss, I'm sure, more silliness from the world at large. Twos, till then, we'll catch up to you next time, folks.
It's been a pleasure, buddy. Thanks a lot.